entitled Lives of the Saints.
Sorry, there was a fault there. And what?
We're reading from Sri Guru and His Grace, chapter 14, by Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj. The chapter is entitled Lives of the Saints. Srila Sridhar Maharaj. In his Chaitanya Shikshamrita, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has explained that there are two types of devotees in the stage of Prema Rurukshu, the beginning stages of pure divine love. These two kinds of devotees are classified as Viviktanandi and Ghostianandi. The Ghostianandis by nature love preaching. They live amongst the Vaishnavas. But there is another group, the Viviktanandi, who prefer a solitary position. There they chant the holy name of the Lord or think about the Lord's pastimes, Leela. These two groups have both been mentioned as being situated on a high platform of devotional service, just before the stage of pure love of Godhead. When they have completely attained the highest stage, there is no qualitative difference between one and the other. They are one and the same. Whatever work Krishna wants us to do through them, they will perform and surrender to him. Therefore, it cannot be said that one who does not have the preaching tendency is a lower Vaishnava. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has clearly grouped these two sections of devotees in the stage of those who are just about to occupy the highest plane. There are two groups, one of a preaching type and another of a solitary type. But according to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we cannot make the distinction that one is higher and the other is lower. According to the desire of Krishna, they will do his will. The devotee whom Krishna wants to preach will do that work, but those who do not like to work in that way cannot be called unqualified. Those that like preaching will naturally speak in favor of the preaching camp because they are inspired by Krishna to do that service. They are successful. Krishna says, Acharyam mam vijanayan. It is my inspiration that can really deliver the fallen souls. Whomever Krishna will accept can understand him. Others cannot. Yam evaisa vrinute tena labhyas. When Krishna delegates power sufficiently to a Vaishnava and wants to deliver many fallen souls through him, it takes place by his will. Swarup Damodar is not found to preach in any extensive way. Ramananda Rai is also not found to preach in any extensive way to make disciples going from door to door. On the other hand, Nityananda Prabhu and others did. Krishna selects his instruments according to his own desire. Kaviraj Goswami prays, Vandeham Sri Guru, Sri Yuta Parakamalam, Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha. First he offers his respects to the group of spiritual masters who are immediately in touch with the fallen souls. Then he says, Sri Rupam Sagrajatam. He offers his respects to the Shastra Gurus, Sri Rupa and Sri Sanatan did not practically come in touch with the masses for preaching, but they gave scriptures for the preachers. The Shastras, the rules and regulations, and the ontological questions, all these things were given by Rupa and Sanatan. Are they not Uttam Adhikaris? They did not come in direct touch with the people, but as they were meant to by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they laid the foundation for the preaching of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. They are the Shastra Gurus, the spiritual masters who give the revealed scriptures. Spiritual touchstones. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami first offers his respects to the Recruiter Gurus, then in a higher stage to the Shastra Gurus, and then to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who came with his associates and paraphernalia to inaugurate a new truth in the world. In 5 stages he offers his respects to his spiritual masters, and in the highest stages he offers his respects at the lotus feet of Sri Sri Radha and Govinda, and all the gopis headed by Lalita and Vishaka. Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanvitamscha. So the Shastra Gurus are doing some work as they have been inspired by Sri Krishna. They are not coming in direct touch with the fallen souls. So we cannot say that because they are not directly preaching to the fallen souls, they are not sparshamani or touchstones. To say so would only be expressing our partiality to the preaching group. We have to put some faith in the spiritual master. We must have faith that what he does is the activity of the Supreme Lord, working within him, that Krishna has come to preach about himself through our spiritual master. We must try to see Krishna in Guru, and Guru's actions as meant to deliver us. We are encouraged in this way. Still, this is the relative view. From very strict, impartial vision, we can classify the Guru according to his realization as an intermediate devotee, Madhyam Adhikari, or a topmost devotee, Uttam Adhikari. Amongst the servitors of Krishna, some are inclined towards Radharani, some towards Chandravali, and some are in the middle. Some devotees are more attracted to Brajalila, some to Gauralila, and some are in the middle. This is the nature of the Lord's pastimes. These differences will exist eternally. Gauralila higher than Krishna Lila. Some devotees have a preaching nature, whereas others may be of the secluded type. But that does not mean that all who are of the secluded nature are lower, and all who are of the preaching nature are higher. We cannot say that. They should be judged according to their surrender and acceptance of Krishna. Both Gauralila and Krishna Lila are the highest in Goloka. But if we are bold enough to assert that Gauralila is higher than Krishna Lila because of its magnanimous dealings, because it is distributing itself, then it should be given more importance. In that consideration, it is superior to Krishna Lila. And if we are to follow very strictly this point, then, of course, we may have to appreciate the preaching section of the Vaishnavas, considering that they are doing the most beneficial work in the universe. Loka hitaya cha. The preachers are more fortunate because through them Krishna is trying to release many fallen souls. A relative form of vision may be seen in that way. Gauralila is higher than Krishna Lila. Why? Because it is spacious and broad. It is available to everyone. And in Gauralila, Krishna is distributing himself to the fallen. This is something in addition to Krishna Lila. Then, whenever we find that good fortune has made someone an agent to raise up the fallen souls, we may have some greater appreciation for him. Some justification for considering the preachers to be more fortunate may come if we consider that Krishna is better when preaching than when playing within his own group. Naturally, we will have preference for the preachers who have brought Krishna consciousness here amongst us. Krishna has chosen certain devotees as his agents to preach about him to the fallen souls. And that is more desirable for us in our present position. So if we are to develop our perspective in that line, of course we can say that the fallen souls, like us, will give more stress to those who are the cause for our delivery. To think that some agents are preferable to others because the symptom of magnanimity is more easily traceable in them is a relative view in the ultimate context of reality. Although sometimes we may judge Vaishnavas according to their different activities, we are not always correct, because a devotee is chosen for a particular service by the Lord, and whatever the Lord wants to do through him is done by his will. This is the underlying principle. It is his selection. Sometimes the selection comes to A, sometimes to B, sometimes to C. We are all at we're all at the disposal of the Lord's infinite will, and according to his sweet will, according to how Krishna wants to utilize us, our activities will be successful. That is the absolute consideration. We cannot fail to connect success with the medium. There is also some value in that, but we must consider that Krishna is there in the background. We must always understand that the divine will, the highest will, is working through us, so we should not be extreme in judging a devotee according to external considerations. Babajis and preachers. Gaurakishore Das Babaji Maharaj did not preach, but his disciple, our spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, preached with great magnitude. Srila Lokanath Goswami did not preach at all, but we find that the preaching of his only disciple, Srila Narottam Das Thakur, was most extensive. So a Vaishnava should not be judged only by the amount of work that he shows outwardly. His success is at the disposal of the divine will. Krishna awards service to a particular person according to his own choice and enables that person to carry out that service. There are many examples of this. Srila Nityananda Prabhu preached throughout the length and breadth of Bengal with great force, but Srila Gadadhar Pandit, although apparently not doing any tangible service in the Leela of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is said to be Radharani's bhava, transcendental sentiments incarnate. And Gadadhar Pandit's affinity for Mahaprabhu exceeds that of all others. So we should not judge the position of a Vaishnava by the magnitude of his external activities alone. Of course, we cannot ignore the service rendered by a devotee. That is a noble thing. That is a great thing. But ultimately the key is in the hand of the Lord. Ekala Ishwara Krishna Arasabha Britya. Krishna is dancing. Krishna is at the root of everything, and whatever he wills is successful. Krishna wants to dance in a particular way with a particular servitor, and he successfully dances according to his own sweet will. Krishna is the wire puller, the controller. The key is in his hand. He controls both universal and specific dealings. By understanding this, we can save ourselves from pratishtha or false prestige, the thirst after name and fame. If we are fully conscious of the fact that everything is in the Lord's hands, then we cannot feel any pride. It's a couple of important points Guru Maharaj is making, that to not make through not judging devotees' spiritual advancement through their external activities, one can avoid aparad, and also by not casting superficial importance onto a Vaishnava service, then can also avoid pratishtha by seeing everything as Krishna's will and not the function of some skill, material skill. So to teach us that it is not very easy to recognize a real Vaishnava by his external dress or manners alone, Gadadhar Pandit apparently misunderstood the position of Pundarik Vidyanidhi, an exalted associate of the Lord. Gadadhar Pandit was taken by Mukundadatta to see Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Mukundadatta came from the same village as Pundarik. Mukunda knew him, and so he asked Gadadhar Pandit, "Would you like to see a real Vaishnava?" And Gadadhar Pandit told him, "Yes, I'm always eager to have the darshan of a real Vaishnava." Then Gadadhar Pandit followed Mukundadatta to the quarters of Pundarik Vidyanidhi, and he was dumbfounded by what he saw. "What is this?" he thought. "Here is an aristocrat with curled, scented hair and a stylish, princely dress, smoking a pipe decorated with a golden thread, and the whole room is filled with a sweet scent. He is a Vaishnava?" Mukundadatta could understand Gadadhar's heart and began to sing a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. Aho bhakyam stana kalakutam jigham saya payayad apyas sadve lebhi gatim datriyochitam tatonyam kam va dayalum sharanam vrajema. Oh, how amazing it is! The sister of Bakasura, Putana, desiring to kill Sri Krishna, smeared poison on her breasts and forced Krishna to drink their milk. Even so, Lord Krishna accepted her as his mother, and so she reached the destination suitable for Krishna's mother. Of whom should I take shelter but the most merciful Krishna? Rolling in ecstasy, Upon hearing this, Pundarik Vidyanidhi became very serious. His movements stopped, and then some shivering was apparent in his body. The whole atmosphere was changed. He began to throw his hands and feet left and right. He cast his smoking pipe aside and began to roll on his bed, tearing off his silk clothing and silk sheets, and pulling out his beautifully curled and decorated hair. He began to cry, "Of whom should I take shelter but the most magnanimous Lord? Where should I take refuge without such a Lord?" With this on his lips, he was rolling on the floor in ecstasy. After a long time, he gradually subsided, and Gadadhar thought to himself, "What did I think about this great personality? He has so much love for Krishna within. Although externally he appears as an ordinary man, a slave of luxury, internally he is a great devotee. What intense love he has for Krishna." Then he thought, "I have committed Vaishnava Aparad, an offense to a great devotee. How can I free myself? I thought ill of him. What is the remedy for that offense?" So he thought to himself, and then told Mukunda, "I have committed an offense against this great Mahatma. How can I get out of that? I am thinking that generally those who come to this devotional line have to formally accept some preceptor, but I have not yet taken initiation from any Vaishnava. If I take initiation from him, he will forgive me in my offenses. He won't take any offense from me if I surrender unto his holy feet. Then only can I get release from this crime. But I have to consult with my master, Gauranga Mahaprabhu." So he went to consult with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Some time before this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was seen calling the name of Pundarik and crying, "Pundarik, my father, Pundarik, where are you?" In this way, he was suddenly crying. Ordinary people could not understand. They began to ask, "Who is that Pundarik? For whom is the Lord wailing so much? Why is Nimai Pandit wailing, 'Pundarik, Pundarik'?" And within a few days, Pundarik came from another village to his Navadvip house. Mukunda Datta was his co-villager, so he knew Pundarik. When the devotees inquired, "Who is this Pundarik?" Mukunda Datta answered, "Pundarik has got a small estate. He is a well-to-do married man." So Gadadhar Pandit asked Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about Pundarik Vidyanidhi, saying, "I have committed an offense against the great Vaishnava Pundarik Vidyanidhi. So for my own spiritual good, I feel the necessity to take initiation from him. But without consulting you and getting your consent, I can't do anything. I put it before you, what should I do?" Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu welcomed the idea, saying, "Yes, this is very good. You must accept him as your guru." It is said by authoritative sources that Pundarik Vidyanidhi was the father of Radharani. So he was the incarnation of Vrishabhanu Maharaj. So Gadadhar Pandit took initiation from Pundarik Vidyanidhi. In this way, we should not be extreme in judging a devotee only from his external activities. That's the end of the chapter. Guru Maharaj described himself as a form breaker. The form is like the external appearance that any kind of ideology or belief system is bound to develop a culture that is built over time to support the achievement of those ideals, whatever those ideals or whatever is the goal of that belief system. Inevitably a culture will build around it in order to support the success in whatever that belief or practice is. And that becomes the form. So you get the ideal, you get the substance, and then you get the form, which is the culture and all the things of the physical world that are brought in to build an infrastructure to support the inner substance. And they are of value as long as they're working according to that function to support the interest of the ideal. But there's always the possibility of them taking precedence over the ideal. And if that is the case, then they become contrary forces in the achievement and the success of the ideal. And another thing is that if there's too much focus on the form as opposed to the ideal, then the ideal will be subverted in the interest of an appreciation of the form, and thus one's growth will be stunted and made extremely superficial. So it's inevitable that proper context is constantly kept in mind, and in terms of what is the relationship of the form with the substance. And although due importance is given to the form, it only possesses that importance in relation to its service to the substance, and how much it can promote the inner ideal. And when the form begins to take precedence over the substance, then often it needs to be broken. And that can apply to any kind of form, any of that infrastructure that is built to support an ideal, a noble ideal. If it becomes obsolete, then it must be broken in the interest of preservation of the ideal. And Guru Maharaj practiced that in his life, where for example, the Gaudiya Math was formed by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur to promote his high ideals of service to Mahaprabhu and establishment of Daivivan Ashram, etc. How does Guru Maharaj word the inner? Someone asks him a question, what was the purpose, or what was the goal of Siddhanta Saraswati and the Gaudiya Math? He says, the establishment of Daivivan Ashram. And then how does he word the inner purpose? Do you remember that specifically? Okay. But it's essentially to promote Radhadasyam, right? The Radhadasyam teaching, pure Radhadasyam, and establishment of Daivivan Ashram.
I remember. That was a wonderful. I think I shared that on my Facebook page, actually. Somebody published it, and it really struck me. Yeah, that was really special explanation.
Yeah. And so the Gaudiya Math was built to promote those lofty ideals. And when it unfortunately began to serve as a vehicle for other objectives, which were certainly not based on those high ideals, post Saraswati Thakur's departure from the world, then Guru Maharaj left that. It was a vehicle or an instrument that had that had become obsolete, and so Guru Maharaj describes himself, and he does describe himself as a form breaker, right?
Yeah,
it wasn't a moniker that others attached.
Yeah. I'm a form breaker, not a form maker.
And also when the ISKCON devotees approached him, they were somewhat enamored with the idea of a form, of the keeping of purity of form, of ritual, of dress, of everything that is to do with the appearance. And excessive focus on that is done to the detriment of the substance. So Guru Maharaj is also giving this point to them that form is is there for a purpose, but with too much focus on it, then it in itself can be diversionary. And with too much focus on the form comes other potentially problematic issues, such as given here in this famous story of Gadadhar Pandit visiting with his friend Mukundadatta Pundarik Vidyanidhi. So Gadadhar Pandit was focusing on the form of Pundarik Vidyanidhi. And he was dressed in purple, right? Have you seen that reference?
Seen what, sorry?
That Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Anyway, he was dressed in silk finery, and he was reclining on a fancy bedstead, and smoking a pipe. And Gurudev even mentions the type of tobacco he was smoking.
Yeah,
someone told me. Was that you that told me that? Perhaps it was.
Maybe. Yeah, he said it was a very expensive kind of tobacco.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name. He said the name.
Yeah. So everything was of premium quality. He's a man of very high taste, a connoisseur. And wearing something is, I remember, like a fine silk, purple silk robes, but I'm not sure where the color comes from. Anyway, fine silk robes with all the external appearances of a wealthy hedonist, of a sense enjoyer, a man who's made a bit of money, and he's at his holiday home, which essentially it was, on the banks of the Ganga, and he's just living a good life, and he's not really that interested in spiritual topics. So Gadadhar is wondering, why did you bring me here to see this guy? This is not what I'm interested in. Doesn't inspire me. And Mukundadatta picked up on that, and then came up with an idea to reveal Pundarik's exalted status to Gadadhar, and chanted the verse, which describes or illustrates the amazing mercy of Krishna, even to those who can't approach him with dubious motive. A motive so dubious as to come and kill Krishna, still they are, through their contact with Krishna, given an exalted position. And the entire purport of the story really is that focusing too much on form, we not only forget and are left unable to recognize spirituality where it appears, but we also, through that, as a result of that, may commit offense, through that lack of recognition. And of course, Gurudev says that because we don't have the facility or the faculties to properly recognize a Vaishnava, it's good to practice humility, tolerance, and giving honor, Trinada Pisunichena, because that is a kind of like that ring fences one's, or no, that's not the proper term, that protects one from, it's like a blanket protection against the possibility of committing Vaishnava aparad. It's almost like taking a broad spectrum antibiotic. If you don't know what the pathogen is that's causing the problems, then take something that kills all the pathogens, and you're gonna kill the problematic one at the same time. So humility, tolerance, and giving honor is like a complete protection, like a broad spectrum protection against the committance of Vaishnava aparad. And also that will include not seeing or focusing on the form. Because if one is humble, they're not going to, as one is humble in giving honor, they're going to be seeing the good in others and not necessarily critiquing the form. And of course, we may go, of course this is an illustrative story, and so we're not to form any opinion on Gadadhar Pandit's level of adhikar based on this story. as Guru Maharaj says here, it says, so to teach us that it is not very easy to recognize a Vaishnava. So it's an illustrative story rather than something we should be forming a judgment on Gadadhar Pandit about. But these are very broad, fundamental principles that, when applied, can protect one in many circumstances on the spiritual path. And really, there's not so much need for detail or copious understanding of, like, I remember myself, and I've heard from others, going like, oh, now I have Guru Maharaj's entire collection of lectures. I've got them all from the recorded ones from 77 right through to 86 or whatever, 87 or something, 88 perhaps even. And now I'm set. My spiritual life is about to be turbocharged. I'm going to really take off now. And that's good. It's okay to be excited with access to so much spiritual wisdom and nectar. But at the same time, quality and the understanding of, or a quality and deep understanding and application of more fundamental principles is extremely important. So, for example, in the pre-internet age, people would go to their library if they wanted to learn a skill or a new topic. They would go to a library and they'd get out a book or two on the subject, and they would really study those books. And based on just one or two books and diligent reading and study of those books, they could become quite skillful in a short amount of time. But these days, people are, the quality of their study, the quality of their insight, and thus knowledge and learning in any particular topic or field is compromised by access to too much information. So there's too many pulls on the mind, which is distracting focus and success in any one particular area. It's the principle of being spoiled. So there's too much provision. There's access to too many resources too quickly, and so one's ability to appreciate, focus, and concentrate on something is seriously compromised. So this principle can also apply with access to so much information. Like if someone is given one book of Srila Guru Maharaj, then they can, and that is all they have, their appreciation for that is so high.
Yes.
And their application of that can potentially lead to much more spiritual advancement than someone that is just, like listening through swathes of lectures and etc. For whatever purpose, to have said that they've listened to them or whatever. So these basic fundamental principles of not focusing on the form, but making a conscious effort to go beneath the form and see what is the spiritual life, what is it, what are we supposed to be cultivating, outside of all the culture and the trappings. Even what are the bhajans and what is the kirtan about? What is the spirit that is to be cultivated, to be cultured and developed? What is the meaning and purpose? What is the ideal? Otherwise, focusing on the cultural trappings or all the paraphernalia that's surrounding the practice will only lead to some temporary and superficial stimulation, and inevitably will have to be left behind. That form will have to be broken eventually, or you will be broken because you cannot go beyond the form. So either you break the form or it breaks you eventually and you go somewhere else. Any enlightened Upadesh?
Very nicely explained.
And that also extends to the external successes. That is a subtler form of seeing the form, a subtler perspective on focusing only on the form is to base one's appreciation of a Vaishnava on their external successes, which is what Guru Maharaj was talking about earlier on. And practically speaking, and perhaps Guru Maharaj was hinting at it here, is that people were becoming a little, or maybe not seeing Srila Prabhupada's inner purpose for too much focus on the external successes in terms of numbers and the size of the institution of ISKCON as it grew so rapidly, a phenomenal, miraculous growth rate that ISKCON experienced, and such dramatic success. So Guru Maharaj is saying that's good, and that is the will of Krishna, and that occurred through Srila Prabhupada, and in other places that occurred through Srila Prabhupada, making Srila Prabhupada a Shaktivesh avatar. But to focus only on external success is to miss also what the real substance is of a Vaishnava. And that Vaishnavism does not necessarily need to be accompanied, or spiritual exaltation in a person, an exalted spiritual state, an advanced devotee does not necessarily need to show success according to the parameters of measurement that we define success inside. It's not only is it not necessary, but it's misleading and potentially offensive to apply our definitions of success, material success, onto a devotee. There was one friend on Facebook who's got a page. I don't think he's going to be seeing this. It's called Successful Vaishnavas.
Oh, really?
Successful Vaishnavas, yeah. And it has bios and like reports of devotees who are successful. They've got their PhDs and they've done well in business. So it's Successful Vaishnavas. This is exactly what Guru Maharaj is saying. Don't do that. I was going to pull him up on it, but I decided not to. I'll let someone else do it. But
successful Vaishnava to me would have very different meanings.
yes.
That phrase actually is okay, but it depends what you're talking about.
Yes, depends how you define it, right?
How you define success.
Yeah.
As in successfully, practicing Chinadapi Sudhicina, as in living a life of dedicated service to Guru and Garanga. Then yes, I would say that is a successful action.
Yeah. So Guru Maharaj is talking about it here because others, that is a kind of a basic error being made in terms of how you're defining a successful Vaishnava. But others were seeing perhaps Srila Prabhupada's success, and I say this with absolute respect to his success, but if that is limiting their vision or appreciation of other Vaishnavas, then the fixation on that success is damaging. So it must be appreciated in context, of Srila Prabhupada being empowered with that service to preach. Krishna working through Srila Prabhupada as an instrument, which is glorious. And it is in the line of Nityananda Prabhu's spreading of Krishna consciousness. It has that magnanimous aspect. So it's appreciable beyond any measure, or in great measure. But to say that that is the only, that spiritual advancement or spirituality is confined within or is defined by such measurable in numbers and figures, such measurable external success, is to seriously miss out on appreciating other Vaishnavas who may not preach or may not preach in such a wide way or exhibit success in an observable way. And so Guru Maharaj is, in his compassionate, common sense, super practical advice, he's addressing all these foibles and pitfalls that he is observing in the devotees that are coming to see him for his guidance. And this was also one of them that imaginally they were possibly under the influence of at the time. Of course, yeah, that's about it. Should we stop there? You want to, yeah, sorry, what was you going to say?
So, yeah.
You want to say something?
No, I was just going to say that was really, really nice.
Oh, thanks. Yes. All right, Jai Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sri Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai, Gurudev ki Jai.